Hello there. Today we're going to walk you through the CS2 program called eReader. The eReader program is designed to allow you to practice reading from a file. So the requirements say that you should load the poem from poems.big.text, define and call a function that displays a new page of text with the following variations. You should be able to display the next, the previous, the restart book. We need to allow the users to click buttons and trigger each mode of the function. We'll come to that button clicking later. First, let's handle this function call. So we use our algorithms that are given to us in the comments along with the dots with the hints. In the setup, it suggests that we need to import the TS-app library and create a list of page starts. So that sounds easy enough. Let's import TS-app and create a list of page starts. So we'll create an empty list. Okay. Then we're going to write the function for changing the page. It says define a function that can display next, previous, or restart the book. In order to read the file and make some changes, I need some parameters for that function. So let's define change page. The first thing I'll need is the file that I'm going to operate on. So I need a file. Then I need a starting place. I need to know where to start if I'm loading 20 lines at a time. And then I need to know the mode. Now, I can go ahead and give these some default values so that they become optional if they're called without it. So we can use some advanced parameters here. It's a good practice. So start, I'm going to say equals 0. So if they don't tell me where to start, I'm going to start at the beginning. And then if they don't tell me the mode, we'll say that means restart. Okay, then I need some next page, previous page, restart, new text. So the next page section says, how will the program display? Use the end of the currently displayed page as the start of the next page, adding it to the list of page starts if necessary. So for the next function, I already know where I'm starting. I just need to move on to the next. So doing that is an if check. So I'm going to check my mode. So if my mode is next, and we'll go ahead and just come back to that. I'll go ahead and define these other ifs for the mode checks. So temporarily I'll use the word pass. And remember, we come back to that placeholder later. Okay, so that's my 3 different modes, next, previous, pass. And I could define those as elifs as well, so that it can force it to only enter one mode. That might be an even better practice, if, elif, elif. So if we're at next, what I want to do is update my starting location. If it's not already in this page starts, then I want to change it. So to find out where I'm at inside of a file, because I don't know how many characters are on each line, I need to ask the system where I'm currently at. So I can't just assume that I'm at 0 anymore. That only works for the first time. If they press it again, that won't be right anymore. So what I'll need to do is I'll need to say tell me where. So I'll say new start equals file dot, and if we don't remember that, we can go into our code assist and type file. There's a function in here that's file.tell that will return the index of where I'm currently sitting. So I'll do file.tell, and that'll be my new start. Now, it tells me in the hint that if that's not in the list already, that I should add it to the page start list. So that's another quick if check. So if new start not in page starts, and page starts dot append new start. So that's all I need to do is update this new starting, and I'm ready to do next. We'll calculate the new ending point when we get down here to this new text section. So the previous one is just going back, and since I have page starts already saved, I just need to back up. But if they tell me to go back and I'm already at the beginning, I should take care of that. So I'll say if my start is already at 0, then I can just return. I can leave the whole function. I'm done. Return. And if my start's not 0, then I just need to back up to my previous page start. All right, so continuing on. Again, we're on this previous mode. If the start is already equal to 0, I don't need to do anything. I can go ahead and leave. But if the start is not equal to 0, then I need to back up inside this page starts. The problem is right now we haven't yet taken care of anything that's going to serve as an index into that list. So let's go there right after the function call and let's take care of that. Let's insert a variable called start index. And let's make that start index the location of start inside there. So we'll use page starts dot index of start. So if they call the function with anything other than a 0, it's going to go into the list, it's going to find where that starting index is at, and it's going to store that. Well, if the starting index already is 0, we've already taken care of this part here, so we're just going to return 0. Otherwise, we're going to back up 1 in our starting index, and we're going to say new start equals, now where we had file.tell in line 19, now we're going to ask the page starts list where that file in the position indicator is. So new start equals page starts at start index -1. Okay. Use the end of the currently displayed start page. Oh, that's for next. The hint for this one said, how will the program display? Find the previous page start in the list of page starts. And that's what we just did on line 29. Unless the first page is already displayed. And that's what we took care of in line 26 and line 27. So we have fulfilled that hint. Now our restart section, how will the program start the book over? Use the start of the book as the new file position. So to do that, we want to say new start equals 0. We want to go all the way back to the beginning. We don't need to make any changes to page starts because theoretically we have calculated based on the line lengths of this poem, which are constants. We've already calculated some of our page starts. So we don't want to edit those. We just want to go back to the new start of equal to 0. So now each of these cases is going to take care of making sure that new start has a value one way or the other. It's either going to be 0, it's going to be the location of our current start, or it's going to be back to 0 in the restart. All right, So now that we have new start, we just need to go through file and pull in the right number of lines. And from running their solution and counting, we determined that there are 20 lines in that e-reader. So the first thing I want to do is I want to tell the file pointer to go to my start position. So I'm going to use the opposite of the tell, and that is the seek. So I'm going to start with file.seek new start. So whatever character number. So remember, it's kind of hurts your head a little bit sometimes. This new start is not a line number. New start will actually be the number of characters from the beginning of the file to the beginning of the line we want. So we're telling the file to advance to that position. Okay, then I want a new text to be empty. Initialize some place to store this new text. And then I need to loop through and get the lines. So in order to do that, I need to know always what line I'm on. So I'm going to create a counter and initialize that counter to 0. Okay, now I'm going to create a loop. Now you could use a for loop if you so chose. I'm going to go ahead and do a while loop. While the line counter is less than 20, I need to read the line from the file. So I can use file.readLine. And remember, this file.readLine, if we're already at the end of the file, is going to return the empty string, which is the Python end of file indicator. So file.readLine will get me that next line. And then I want to add that line to my new text. I want to append it using concatenation. So I'll do new text plus equals. Oh, and I should probably store that. Line equals. And then I want to add that line. New text plus equals line. So at the end of this loop, my new text is now going to be the next 20 lines. The last thing I need to do is increment my line counter so I don't end up with an infinite loop. Line counter plus equals 1. So if you chose to do a for loop, remember that for loop is going to take care of that increment for you. So you may not have that line if you chose that route. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to do is I want to take that new text and I want to output that to the text label. And the hint says, update the text label with the stored text and return the updated start position. Okay, so there we go. On-screen text update. I'm going to have a text label. I will get to choose what to call that. So that would be a global variable. So I'll have to make sure whatever I name it here is going to be the same thing I name it down in the graphics. For testing purposes, we could print it to the console, just using a print statement if we want. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to print new text, but I'm also going to say label.text equals new text, and then I want to return my current, what it gives me in the hint, it says return the updated start position, which is called new start. So return new start. Okay. So that is the end of my function. Now temporarily I'm going to comment that out because I don't have a text label yet, and I want to kind of test this. So in order to test it, I need the file, I need the start, and I need the mode. So the name of the file is poems.big.txt. So I'm going to come down here in this section. I'm going to temporarily go to all the way to the end, and I'm going to create a little test section here where I'm going to open the file. So I'm not going to do the with open for this testing purposes. I'm just going to open it manually. File equals open poems.big.txt. And then I'm going to call, and I'm going to force my mode manually because I don't have any button clicks. I'm just testing this function call before I move on. So I'm going to give it that file that I just created. I'm going to go ahead and give it a start of 0, and I'm going to give it a mode of restart and see what I get. The name of the method is change page. Okay, change page. Pass it the file you created up on line 88. And then the second thing is the position, and the third thing is the mode. Now, because those are defaults, I could actually leave those off for this first test. So let's test that. So change page file. Okay, so that is something that I should probably take care of. We have 0 is not in the list. Right here at the very, very beginning, we looked up something that doesn't exist. So that is potentially problematic if we say the start index is page start.index of start. So I can fix that pretty easy. I can say if start not equal 0, make it that. Else start index equals 0. So now it should not search for that if it exists. So let's try it again. And there we go. To a brown girl, we get 20 lines of code. So now I want to run that again. So I'm going to print a few blank lines. Okay. Then I'm going to call change page. Give it the same file. We're not opening the file again. We still have it open file, but this time I'm going to give it a start position. Oh, now, what do I give it for a start position? If I don't know where I'm at, I need a global start position, and maybe that's why we're returning the start position here. So maybe when I change the page, I should store that. And then my mode will be next. And we'll update that start. You can call that start anything you want. You can even, I wouldn't suggest it, but it won't, if you reuse the same variable names, it won't break. So there we go, first 10, there's my 3 blank spaces, and I get my next. Now last, I'm going to test my restart by leaving those in there. And I'm going to copy that blank line. And this time I'm going to say previous. Because I tested restart here. And I'll test it again after we've changed to make sure it's functioning. See, I got to a brown girl, to a brown boy, tableau. It's an interesting result. My previous seems to have not backed up. It seems to have just repeated this. So for curiosity's sake, I'm going to run it again with the previous. You see, previous is not functioning. I have a logic error somewhere. So we'll go find that logic error. Something in my previous it's backing up from start index, but start index is coming here. So maybe I need to be updating start index as well. And subtract that. So let's test that. That went out of bounds if I did it first. Let me pause, we'll troubleshoot, I'll find that error, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I had to dig around a little bit, mess around with some stuff, but I found the problem, so I put the problem back in, so we're back where, so you can kind of see this. And I'm glad this is in the video, because you see everybody encounters logic errors, and they're kind of tedious to track down. The problem here is in that if logic that I added here to fix the start position. So it was resetting the start index, and that's not what we wanted. So instead of doing an if check, we're going to go back to the way it was, which is just to say start index equals page starts dot index of whatever we're being passed as the argument. To take care of the zero problem was a really simple oversight. When we created the page starts list, we want to go ahead and put 0 in the list. Then the 0 will never cause it to fall, because we know that 0 is going to be the beginning of the first line, always. So it's safe to go ahead and put that in the page starts. So it will be there. Okay. Then the start index -1 is not needed anymore. So we don't need to update that. We're getting the new start index based on the button presses or here the function calls. So now if we run it, we get to a brown girl. Then we get page 2, which includes the tableau poem. Then we did previous, we get to a brown girl again. And then we did a second previous, but there was no second previous, so notice that it did not print. Clicking previous again isn't going to keep displaying the same screen. It's not going to do anything because there is no previous. So even though we called it twice. So if I wanted to print that again, I'd have to change that to a restart. And now I'll get that to a brown girl twice at the end, once for the previous call, once for the restart call. So that works. All of our function calls work. So I'm going to leave this down here, and I'm just going to block comment all of that out and say this was function testing. So I'll leave that in there in case I need to refer back to it, or if I need to do it again for some reason. And for the next part, this video is already 25 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and cut this video off and call this one part 1. Part 2 will take care of the graphics.